Thanks very much, both of you. That was interesting. Very interesting. Yes, sir. Rich.
Sir, just a quick note on marketing. Anybody who is admitted in Kentucky can have an additional layer of ethical concerns and considerations if you want to have a website, if you want to advertise in any respect. Those of you who are admitted in Kentucky know that Kentucky has a much stricter view of what you can and cannot do without submitting materials. So just to add that.
Thanks, Rich. I want to make an observation before our next speaker begins. I said at the beginning that the purpose of this program is really to give you the information that we think you need to think about to decide whether you should be a solo practitioner. And when we first created this program a couple of years ago, Dimity and I had a meeting with all of the speakers at that time, and I said, somebody in the room needs to say out loud, needs to ask the audience, you need to decide, can I counsel a client? Can I counsel a client? And what I mean is, I've seen some very smart law graduates who didn't want to or couldn't. If they're the only professional in the room and they've got a client, they don't want to tell the client no. You can't, I can't do that, you can't do that, this isn't going to work. They just don't want to be in that position. And you really need to ask yourself that before you rent space and hang out your sign and do all the business stuff is, can I do that? And I don't know if that's a psychological thing or personality or whatever it is, but definitely, and there's nothing bad about it if you can't do it, but you need to figure it out. Don't sign that lease and then say, oh man, I can't do this. I can't tell these people no. And the second part is, this is worse, the problem of a lying client. What if the client is lying to you? What do you do about that? And the person that I burdened with that onerous task last time we did that was Beth Silverman, who's just terrific. I've known Beth for probably 30 years. She's a domestic relations practitioner. I've sent clients to her. They're all happy. And Beth has been on the grievance committee for many years as well. Thank you, Beth.
Thanks, Terry. Before I go into my presentation, I just want to comment briefly on something that Peggy and Ben spoke about, and that is the ratings on AVO and things like super lawyers. Yeah. Is that good? So for AVO and super lawyers, what I have learned from my associates, there is a system to this, and perhaps Peggy understands it much better than I do, but clients respond to those ratings, in a very, very big way. And they are so easily manipulated that it's a bit embarrassing and you almost feel kind of sleazy doing it, but people do respond to it. And like Peggy said, it seems that by asking your peers to go into their AVO placement and just recommend you, then literally one of my associates jumped from, I think, a 6 to an 8.5 literally in a day. And now she has bragging rights that on our website we'll be able to list her AVO rating of being an 8.5. So take the time to get into that system and understand how, as far as I know, and Peggy can correct me, I don't know that client reviews boost your rating as much as other lawyers recommending you. So it's worth taking the time to do it. And also with the super lawyers is something that people attach a great deal of attention to. I think amongst lawyers, we tend to realize that it's all a big game and there's not a lot to it. But again, if you can say you were voted a super lawyer, it certainly looks good on your website. And for young lawyers, there's something called Rising Stars. And I can't remember what the criteria is. It may be 5 years out of practice or something like that. But if I understand it correctly, because 2 of my associates just got voted Rising Stars, it's because they went into super lawyers and set up their profile on super lawyers. My associate who did not do that is not a Rising Star. So again, I don't know the specifics of it, but all I can suggest is that you really look at it and take advantage of that opportunity. And then I think in the super lawyers, by having 1 or 2 other lawyers, it takes 2 seconds to recommend you as a Rising Star. Honestly, I think that's about all it takes to be recognized as a rising star. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I think that that's really the truth. So I'm sure that Peggy could give you a lot more insight into that than I can. So in talking about my topic, first of all, like Ben, I had to respond when you said that so many of us found ourselves opening our own practice quite reluctantly, and I was certainly one of those as well. I, out of law school, worked for a very small law firm as an associate, and about 4 years into that, the partnership broke up, and I was kind of forced to be on my own. I was still able to share space with them. Luckily, by that time, I had built up enough of my practice in domestic relations that I was able to coast into being a solo practitioner. But I think I was too stupid to even consider it as an option. And like many things in life, it's one of the best things that ever reluctantly happened to me, because I know I've been able to earn so much greater income as a result of being on my own than I would have been had I remained affiliated with a law firm. So I suspect that many of you, though, are doing it by choice. And similar to what Terry was saying about recognizing your own personality, I think that is such a big part of making this decision. You have to understand yourself and know, am I somebody who is comfortable going out and networking and selling myself and meeting people? If you find that you're a very bashful person and awkward, then do a critical self-evaluation and say to yourself, I may not be somebody who's a natural at being a solo practitioner. So I really would recommend that you do some very careful self-evaluation in making this decision. I know that Nick talked about whether to be a general practitioner or have a focal area. I have only done domestic relations, and literally in 30 years, with almost no exception, that is all I have ever done. And for me, I realized that it is so much better for me to only have to know one area and to know it well than trying to know several areas and perhaps not as well as I would know it if I was focusing on one. But again, as you're starting out, I think you have to make this decision, and I think it's a very conscious one. I believe that if you choose a niche, then you're going to be much more able to network and to sell yourself. That's my own bias. That if you can go around and as you meet people to say, I am practicing only in the area of such and such, then you're focusing in on getting referrals from those lawyers in that particular area, as opposed to just being someone who is open to receiving any kind of referral. Again, it's a personal choice, but I agree with the comments that have been made here that the best referral source, I believe, when you're starting out is other lawyers. And what those of you who are starting out your practice have to offer is that your rates are going to be so much lower than those of us who have practiced for many years. And that's how you sell yourself. You go up to an experienced lawyer and say, I'm getting started. This is the area I'm planning to practice in. If you receive calls from clients who can't afford your services, would you consider referring those clients to me? I'd be happy to give you feedback once I'm done with the case, and show that lawyer that you are very interested in being a professional and setting up this practice. And when lawyers do refer cases to you, I can't stress to you how important it is to acknowledge those referrals. Send a thank you note. Better yet, take that lawyer to lunch. Reinforce for them that you appreciate the referral, that you are acting upon it, that you want to encourage that lawyer to send you other business. In talking about counseling clients and keeping clients, I think the theme of my comments is that while it's very important, of course, the substance of what you are able to provide to a client, also as important is the manner of your delivery. And I think that starts with the initial phone call. In my business, and I suspect in almost all areas, there are people that are just shopping for lawyers. And lawyers have very, very different perspectives on how much time to spend on an initial phone call. I think I am the exception to the rule in that I spend probably 15 to 30 minutes on almost every new client who calls. And I do that for 3 reasons. Number one, I want to be able to give the client some idea of who I am and what kind of lawyer I am. Number two, I'm assessing the client and deciding whether I want this client. And number three, I'm gathering information so that if the client is going to come into my office, I have an idea of what they're looking for and I can feel better prepared. So at some point in your career, hopefully you will be able to, in that initial phone call, decide the clients that you don't want. At your early stages of your career, you probably are going to feel that any client is a good client. But if you're not terribly busy, I would suggest that you take the time and show the client that you're interested in his or her case. That is your biggest selling point to a client, that you, unlike many of the other lawyers that they're calling, is actually taking the time to listen to them and to hear what it is that's important to them. And people respond very well to that. People often say, you're the first lawyer who's really taken the time to talk to me. And unlike many lawyers, I will say to a client, if a client's saying, well, I've talked with a few lawyers, I'm going to, give some thought to it, I always say, go ahead and do that, because choosing a lawyer is so important, and it's important that you feel comfortable with the lawyer you select. And, lawyers have such a bad reputation, and people think of lawyers as money grubbers, and all we want to do is get you in and take your money. If you reflect to the client that you want your client, or you want this caller to be satisfied with her selection, that again tells this client that you are perhaps a different type of lawyer and a lawyer that they would want to work with. I quote my hourly fees in an initial phone call. I also quote retainer fee. I quote the hourly rates of my associates. Again, very different opinions on this amongst the bar, but for me, I don't want to waste someone's time or waste my time in meeting someone who can't afford my fee. So that's something that you have to kind of get your own personal style with. But I think it's helpful to a client and fair to a client for them to understand that. Many people question whether they should be giving free consultations. Again, I think it varies very much among practice area and amongst lawyers. I know very established lawyers that will give a brief free consult. I know other established lawyers that will charge a flat fee for an initial consult. I charge my normal hourly rate for a consult because otherwise I would spend my entire day giving free consultations. But I do believe there's something to the point that people respect you and respect paying for a service that they are being provided. You don't want to be, perceived as, some schmuck who's just willing to, give out free legal advice and is available at all times to do that. So don't let yourself being taken advantage of. I have clients who are prospective clients who may call me once and I spend my 15 or 30 minutes, and then they call me again and again, and fairly quickly, I will say, I'm happy to talk with you, but I'm going to have to bill you for my services. So establish in your own mind what you want to do about those initial consults, and say it to the client very directly as to what your expectation is. Maybe it's to say that I'm happy to talk with you for 30 minutes about your case so that you and I can decide if we're going to be working together. Similar to what the other gentleman said, I keep notes on every client who I speak with. I keep it in a particular Outlook file. I make notes to myself, like sounds crazy or has no money or something like that to trigger my memory. But it always is good when you can say to the client, yes, I remember talking about this, and tell me, how did it work out? You know, how did that situation work out? In the first meeting, again, people handle it very, very differently. I think what I would stress, first of all, is while we have our own legal agenda and we know exactly what information we want to obtain from the client, your client also has her own agenda. So take the time to listen to your client before you start imposing yourself on the situation. Find out what is concerning the client, what's important to your client. Don't allow yourself to be distracted. Don't be taking other phone calls. Don't be looking at your smartphone. Do the things that your mother taught you. Look at your client in the eye. Call your client by his or her first name. Let your client know that you truly are hearing what they're saying and you're interested in it. And the best thing that you can offer your client is not so much giving them quick legal advice, but it's letting them know that you are going to take their case very, very seriously and that you are going to be working to the very best of your capacity to serve that client's interests. That's what clients are looking for. They don't necessarily need to know the answer to their legal questions. They need to know that they have a competent attorney who is taking their issues very seriously and is looking at them on an individual basis. When you have your meeting, make your office look presentable. Don't have stacks of files. Have your desk cleared off so that your client feels that you are focusing in on him or her. I tend to be a snob about things like this, but I think to be able to, when a client walks in, go and buy some nice glasses. They'll cost you $10. Give them cold water. Don't give them a paper cup that's filled with lukewarm water. You know, ask your client, can I get you something? Make sure that you're letting them know that you are running a professional business. As Nick said, yes, you're treating it like a business, but you have to impress that upon your client as well, that you are a business professional. Let your client know what that client can expect from you. And this can even be done in your initial phone call to show your client what kind of a lawyer you are. You can say, I will return phone calls within 24 hours. If you say it, then you have to do it. You ask your client, what form of communication is best for you? Is it email communication? Is it texting? You're establishing an expectation that your client can have of what you are going to deliver for them, and then make sure that you do it. If your client, if you know that your client is waiting to hear from you, and you know that you just haven't been able to get to it, take 1 minute, write a quick note. Thank you for your patience. I so appreciate it. I haven't forgotten about you. I'm going to be getting back in touch with you by the end of this week. Those are the little things that a client will feel, my client, my lawyer is watching out for me. She's on top of my case. And if your client lets you know that they are dissatisfied for whatever the reason, the response cannot be one of defensiveness. That will get you nowhere. The response is, I appreciate you telling me about this. It's very important to me that I know how you're feeling. Let's talk about how we can avoid that in the future, and I want you to be letting me know as we continue whether you're still feeling that way. These are little things, and they're common sense things, but you know, a disgruntled client is going to be the header on a letter that you receive from the grievance committee. So those are the people that are going to be sending letters to the grievance committee saying, my lawyer has neglected me, I'm not kept informed of what's happening in my case. I have a policy in my office where I send out copies of every piece of correspondence that I send out to another lawyer or that I receive. With technology, this will take you 30 seconds, but your client then will know that you are working on their case. Make it a habit that you are going to copy them on every single thing that is coming in and out of your office so that they're kept abreast. One very small thing about the initial consultation, since I inform clients up front about what my hourly rate is, it's always a bit sensitive at the end to basically say, give me your money. But, I just say at the end, how would you like to pay for your services? I accept credit cards. I've been doing it for probably 15 years. I recommend you looking into that. There is a fee to it, but if it allows you to get paid, then it's very well worth the fee. I know for years I did it through Costco. There's obviously, it can be done through all sorts of methods, but I do recommend it. I think it's a great convenience for clients, and it certainly, I think, will increase your revenue. One problem that people starting out in a law practice have is not knowing the answers in this initial meeting and feeling very insecure about it and very worried that they're going to look like an idiot. And, we've all gone through it. We've all kind of, fudged our way through it. But the older I get, the more comfortable I am not knowing the answers. And I think you can answer people the same way I do, which is, this case presents an interesting set of facts. I'm not really sure exactly what the law is going to be on this, but I am going to look into it, and I'm going to be able to get back to you and tell you what I've been able to discover. Or, to say, I'm not entirely sure of the answer. My gut is such and such, but I'm going to confirm that and be able to let you know. So don't feel overwhelmed if you can't answer all of their questions. As long as you show them that you are committed to finding out their answers, I think that they're going to be satisfied. One of the things I was asked to talk about is this balancing act between basically accepting a case when you probably should know that there's no merit to the case. And it's something that you will wrestle with, but again, I always err on the side of honesty and transparency, and it's never served me poorly. If a client comes in and you believe that their case has no merit, they will appreciate it so much if you are honest with them. And if you're honest with them and they still choose to pursue it, then you've lowered their expectation, and they hopefully are going to be satisfied that you have done the best job for them that you can possibly do. But give an honest assessment. If they choose not to pursue their case, I promise you they will remember you as being an honest lawyer, and they will tell a friend about you in the future. I put on my outline, I believe, about giving non-legal advice. And this is something that is, a little bit silly to talk about, but especially in my field in domestic relations, which of course is so personal, I often find myself giving non-legal advice, talking to a client about my hope that she would consider going to therapy, or even my hope that she might consider delaying a decision about ending her marriage. Again, it's this personal interest that you can show in your client that tells them that you are not just looking to generate money here, that you care about them, and that you may be one of the only people that can really give honest feedback to a person because they've come to you and given you all of this very personal information. So give feedback to them. Obviously, you don't want to go overboard on it, but I think it's another way of showing that you've listened to them and that you are concerned about helping them in every respect. Learning what cases not to accept is indeed a real skill to have. I think we all have our different thresholds for pain. My threshold for pain is there are certain lawyers on a very short list, no matter what. If a client calls and says their spouse is being represented by that person, absolutely not. I will not take it. I mean, I've got a philosophy of life is too short, and there are a few things, where life is too short for me to be involved. That life is too short to be involved in certain things. So, whenever I've kind of let something slide in, even though my radar is going off, I'm always disappointed in myself. You just have to know it when you see it. I feel like I have so finely tuned this that within a couple of minutes, I know exactly what client I don't want. I don't want a client who says, "Are you going to be the meanest pit bull in town?" Absolutely not. You're looking for a different kind of lawyer. I'm so happy to give you names of lawyers that will fit that description to a T. But again, just, figure out what you know that you're not good at, what you know you don't want to have in your life, because otherwise you're going to have a miserable law practice if you're taking these cases that are just horrible for you. And the idea of, your fees, what you don't want to do is cut your fees so low that you have this volume practice where you can't do a good job for any of them because you've got so many clients and you're working for whatever, some low rate, and then you're not able to take care of the good clients in the way that you really should be as a professional lawyer. So be monitoring that and just don't sell yourself short, because you're going to end up making mistakes and having dissatisfied clients. One thing that I know Terry has spoken about, there was a very, very well-respected lawyer in town who did a lot of representation of lawyers who unfortunately has passed away, John Berlew, but he always advised in his presentations, with every client, ask yourself, is this client worth losing my law license for? There is no client that is worth that. And whenever you start to be worried at night thinking, is this within the disciplinary rules? Is it outside of the disciplinary rules? Quick answer, don't do it. Stay away from it. Don't let yourself get close to that scenario. Am I almost out of time?
About 2 minutes.
Okay. Establishing boundaries with your clients. If you are going to give cell phone numbers, tell your client, I don't accept cell phone calls unless it's a true life or death emergency on weekends or at night times. So let them know again what to expect. If you call and leave a message, I assure you I will be getting back in touch with you. I will respond to emails within 24 hours. Put your away message on if you're not going to be able to respond to emails even during the day. Again, just letting the client know what to expect. Let's see. Conflicts. When you, somebody has already talked about recognizing conflicts of maybe somebody in your office. So if you're going to be sharing office space, you need to talk with the other lawyers in your office about how to identify potential conflicts. And, recognizing conflicts with your own client. Any time that a client is dissatisfied, that's a client that could very easily file a grievance against you. So take the time to attend to it. Don't let it, like Peggy said, don't ignore the negative review. Don't ignore, and it's something lawyers do all the time because they're ashamed, they're worried. They go and stick their head in the sand, and you have to hit it head on. So I wish you all good luck and hope that you'll let me know if I can help in any way.
Thanks, Beth.